Hello guys, my name is Mr. and I am a 3D artist that specializes in animation. I use Blender and I just wanted to show you guys how I animate and show you my process with this animation. So as you can see with this animation, we have two decently sophisticated characters. We have two bipedal, very heavy characters, and one just so happens to pick up the other. So displaying weight in this animation is going to be very important, and also just getting our speed and momentum transfer downs will really help sell this animation. So yeah, over the entire duration of this video, we'll be going over. This was a 3-day process. Day one was just blocking out how I wanted the Spinosaurus to move. And then day two is refining the blocking and then switching the spline. And then day three is refining our spline. And then after that, it is on to animating the T-Rex. Thankfully, I was able to do that all mostly on the same day, at least for the T-Rex. But yeah, here's my animation process. This is just the blocking stage. Mostly what you'll see here is you won't see any like blending if you don't know what's the difference between spline and blocking. Basically, the difference is when you're blocking out your animation, what you're doing is you're getting key poses at specific points in your animation that can kind of guide you as you go through it. For me personally, in this one, I did keyframes every 5 frames. And obviously some things will stay in the animation, some things won't. Like the thing I'm doing right now, I don't keep in the animation, but you know, it's just worth to try things out. Early on, I didn't actually have it set to blocking, it was spline, but then I switched it shortly afterwards. And so basically, let me just continue with the difference. Blocking, like I said, is when you animate every couple of frames so that you can get a feel for how you want your animation to be. However, there's no in-betweens, right? So there's no blending of frames in between one frame to another. There's no interpolation that's happening. It's just a straight one frame to the next frame kind of thing. Whereas Spline has those interpolations. It's smooth in between and just all around. It's how you do your animations in the end, and that's normally what they come out to be. But yeah, this is just the blocking stage for day one. This took me about 2.5 hours. To just block out this. I wasn't entirely focused while I was doing it, so I only got about half of the way through while I was doing it. But overall, I think it laid out a really good groundwork for what I want to do. Here you can see what I mean by blocking. This is the blocking stage where it just cuts from one pose to another pose and there's no in-betweens. And yeah, there you go. I'll just let you guys keep watching. All right, so here's our shot after day one, after about 2.5 hours of animation. This is kind of what our blocking looks like. This is most of the Spinosaurus animation that's in the shot. It's nearly done, but obviously there's still some things to work out. And yeah, so now we will go into day two, which is refining the blocking and then beginning our spline. And so here we'll just complete out our blocking and see how long we want this animation to be. I think it ended up being about 100 frames in total by the end. And yeah, So here I'm just trying to get the head motions for the Spinosaurus correct, because when these things move, their heads actually kind of stay in one spot. They'll go up and down a slight bit, but they don't go side to side very much. They kind of just float there, kind of like a chicken head, but um, yeah. And then it'll just mostly be me getting this all the momentum down correctly here, and just like refining my poses, and then I'll swap to Spline here shortly. So right about here is actually where I start to figure out like he's begins this quick sprint to try to catch this Rex, and then he has to stop all of the momentum that he just put into running uh, in like 2 steps. And so what I realize is that his feet will slide right when he hits the ground. And so here you'll kind of see me kind of just messing with the feet for the most part, just trying to gauge what it should actually look like should he stop this abruptly. Because normally it takes, with the weight of this thing, I would say it takes a little bit longer. But I just wanted to do it real quick. So this is not entirely realistic, but I think, you know, it could work in some sense if you're still going for realism. But yeah. And as always, remember when animating, whenever your character is moving from one leg to another, the hips will always be above the leg that is touching the ground, and they will always be angled in a way that kind of shows that. So if you ever see this animation from like front view, which I'm sure you will at some point, you might notice that there's a bit of like sway between each step, and so there's like this groove where the hips kind of can settle during each step. And as you can see from that perspective a minute ago, there was a lot of like you could almost say zigzag back and forth from side to side from the hips. And the reason I'm able to see this is because when you're animating, you can use what's called motion paths. And so you can see kind of like where your bone is in the timeline. And so like here you can kind of see like the orange dots and the white dots. The white dots are just where the interpolations are, excuse me. And then the orange ones are where your keyframes are set. So you can see, you know, just kind of like your motions of what it would actually look like. And yeah, it's helpful, super, super helpful. I definitely recommend using it more often. Or just trying it out. It's really nice for getting good movement on honestly anything. It's good. It's helpful for like walk animations and realistically just everything and anything and everything. I just highly recommend using it and trying it out on your animations. One of the biggest challenges for an animation like this is just trying to get that proper weight to make sense in physics and in real life. Obviously, this isn't going to be a super realistic animation because we're dealing with creatures that are larger than they should be. You know, this Spinosaurus here is literally twice the size of the T-Rex that we saw at the beginning, and so, you know, obviously it's not going to be super realistic, but it's always best to kind of make it as realistic as possible. So here I'm just really working on like selling the weight in the hips, especially because I mean that's where you're seeing it all. That's like the main uh, point in momentum. I mean, it's the center of gravity for the most part. It should be, at least. Obviously, on this guy, the center of gravity is not quite at the hips. I would think it's more in like the stomach area. I mean, he has that huge tail, and it's got like a very large clump on the end. But I still think that he's still going to be a little bit more front heavy than anything else, really. Something's weird going on there. Oh, I might have been baking keyframes. um, yeah, what's interesting about this rig is that I actually have it set up so that his tail can be completely dynamic, and it's entirely just like a simulation. Basically, I can make it into a simulation, and it's super easy, super nice and simple. And yeah, it's makes animating a tail really simple, and it looks like legit. It looks like an actual tail animation. What I'm doing here is just kind of figuring out where I want this T-Rex to come in at. Now that I've kind of finished blocking out and refining the spline for my Spinosaurus, I'm kind of just figuring out where I want this T-Rex to be, when I want the Spinosaurus to grab it, um, and just kind of seeing what it would look like. I'm also kind of figuring out if I want to use, or like how I would do, specifically the modifier to get the T-Rex rig to stay connected to the Spinosaurus's head. But yeah, so this is the product at the end of day 2. As you can see, it's pretty solid. There's no tail animation yet, and it looks like there's actually some arm animation, but there's not. It's just some weird rigging mechanics that I was trying out at the time, and it didn't end up working out, so I'll take it out later on in the video. But yeah, that's mostly what it looks like for the end of day 2. So now going on to day 3, we'll just be refining, and making things look right. This is right where I take off the constraints on the arms that were kind of making it look a little weird. It was just a weird thing that was happening, and it wasn't rendering out properly, and so I just decided to take it out of the equation. But yeah, here I'm adding in some animation to the arms, since I actually haven't done that yet. And then shortly after that, I will move to adding the T-Rex in. You always want to be careful when you animate with x-axis mirroring, because you get this thing called twinning, and it's not realistic. It's not how life actually works. And so what I do is I'll animate with x-axis mirroring sometimes, and instead of just keeping it that way, what I'll do is I'll select all the bones in one arm, and I will change them out, or I'll scrub them down the timeline just a little bit. And here you see I added the T-Rex rig. I was having a little bit of issues with the tail at first, because once again, he also has the same like physics-based tail rig. But once I fixed it, I just got him into his position and started posing him. I want him to kind of look like he didn't realize the Spinosaurus was there, and so we immediately like catch him. He's like right about to start running from the Spinosaurus. And the Spino kind of catches him on his first step, basically. And he's kind of like, he does this like slight roar as well, just to kind of be like, he's scared. He's trying to run away, and he's kind of like alarming the area a little bit, I think, as well. But yeah, initially I wasn't too sure where I wanted the Spinosaurus to grab him, because it looked like from that top view, it looked like it would be best if I just had the Spino grab him by the neck. But later on, I don't end up doing that. He kind of punctures the T-Rex in like the stomach area, and in my opinion, I would just like to think that he just kind of gets stuck there, and so then his stomach is what's actually pulling the rest of his body at that point. Because I mean, this model has like some really large teeth. I don't know if you see them. I mean, you see the top teeth right now, and they're quite large. But they're not even as large as like the two tusk-like teeth on the bottom. And so, yeah, I was just thinking that kind of looked more like it just kind of got him there, and he's just stuck now, and he can't move. Initially, the T-Rex went down quite easy in comparison to later on. He kind of just gets grabbed and dies earlier on. But I go in and I change that so that it looks like he gives a little more effort. I eventually change it so that the Spinosaurus's arm kind of comes up and smacks him in the face a little bit. And honestly, in my opinion, it still looks pretty weak, but I mean, last second changes and whatnot. So can't really do much about it. But yeah, just enjoy the time lapse for the next minute and a half. And so over the course of this animation, I was just trying to figure out how I wanted to do the T-Rex, because I felt like the T-Rex was going to be the most complicated part, because it's the first time I'm doing something similar to like ragdoll physics, and I didn't quite know how it would work like that. And so honestly, this animation is more so a test than it actually is like something I would have for like a demo reel, for example. But you know, it was just trying to figure out how would it look if an actual T-Rex literally just got grabbed by something twice its size and literally just thrown about, basically. Like, how would that look? Like, would the T-Rex really have much of a chance? Number one. Number two, how much would he fight with his legs? And so I know you can't really see it, but with his, I think it's his right leg, he takes it and he tries to scratch at the Spinosaurus's neck, but kind of isn't really able to do that before the Spinosaurus kind of breaks his back a bit. But yeah, and then here you'll see I added a plane kind of, or added a sphere, and I connected it to a long rod basically and simulated it so that I get proper physics. And in the end, this is what the animation looked like. Spinosaurus just kind of grabs him, slashes his head, and then just grabs him again and lets him go. Overall, pretty solid animation. I'm happy with it. There are some things that I would definitely change on it now. But you know, just gotta take what I can and just be happy with it and move on. Because as an animator, it's always best not to get attached to your shots, especially if you want to work in the industry. Obviously, using Blender, I don't think I'll ever get around to actually working on a film, but you know, hopefully one day I'm given the opportunity to. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to use the comments below. And I hope you guys learned something from this video and on how a lot of people, including me, do animation.